So welcome to Applying Materials. In this video we're going to explain that a material is comprised of one or more textures and one or more shaders. Textures are image files, shaders are GPU code running on your graphics processing unit, your graphics card. So Unreal ships with some impressive examples of materials. Unreal has powerful material editing tools in it, which we'll take a look at and play with. And we'll be applying materials to our room interior. By the end of it, you will have created something like this, a chair so hideous looking that you will be desperate to escape the room. You'll have nicely materialed floors and walls, and you'll be able to actually change the colours of things like the metal and the seats on this chair. So, see you there. So guys, it's time to make this thing a lot more pretty. Let's start with the floor. This checkerboard's all very nice with its, what are they, 5 centimetre squares inside. What are they? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, inside 50 centimetre squares. But it's kind of boring, right? So why don't we get some materials? Where do we find them? Guess what? In the starter pack. Go to materials, and then here they are. Now, let's have a look. We can preview them here. If you want more detail, you can double click on them. And then what are you going to get? You're going to get a faceful of this thing, which is basically a node editor. It's very similar to the Blueprint editor. It's basically built on the same stuff. And it's a little bit scary, particularly this one. Materials are complicated. They combine together images, which can have a lot of different purposes. This guy here is something called a normal map, which gives the illusion of surface detail that's not there, of geometry that's not there, roughness that's not there. And you've got all sorts of other things. You have masks that can mask out things like part of something that emits light and part that doesn't, emissive masks. You can have all sorts of different things. Complicated bit of kit. But for now, we're going to focus on just applying them and tweaking them slightly. So how do we apply them? Well, let's find something that's going to work like a wood floor walnut. Just grab it, drag it, drop it on the floor. Oh my God, excuse me, but look at that. If you get close to that floor, look how pretty that is. That's just ridiculous. I mean, bearing in mind this is running at how many frames a second? I don't know. Click at the top left of the perspective viewport, click Show FPS, and okay, I'm running a GTX 980 here in a 4 gigahertz processor thingy, but it's doing 120 frames a second, which is plenty even for VR. So very, very pretty, okay? It's cool. You can adjust various properties of these materials. I don't think we need to go into a huge amount of detail about that right now, but I want to show you where you get to the details of the materials. And where do you think it is? It's under the Details tab. So we click on Details, we scroll down, and we can see Materials here. And that tells you what materials are assigned. If you have something with a material and you want to see where that is in your content browser, you click the little magnifying glass. So we're in the Details tab against Materials. Clicking the magnifying glass takes you back to the material itself. Okay, so that's fine. You can right-click on the material to see various different things. The main thing you're going to want to do there is to say Edit, or just double-click. You could also go to Asset Actions and select actors using this asset, which is kind of a way of going back the other way. That's selected the floor. We've got the floor selected, we can go to Details, and we can go back to the material. So that's how you kind of get back and forth between those. The rest of these properties here aren't really too specifically related to the material, but there is a sneaky thing going on here. If you look at Static Mesh under the Details, you can actually drag that down, and there's other stuff there, and sometimes you'll see other property panels here that have the ability to drag down or click down and show more information. So just watch out for that when you're exploring to see what's available. Obviously, we will show you things as they're necessary. Rendering here, there's some more information about rendering and to do with all sorts of stuff that we don't need to get into right now, okay, because we can't boil the ocean by teaching you everything at once. So that's how you apply a material to the floor. How do we apply materials to the wall? Well, let's go and find a reasonable wall material. I think we're going to end up with a really boring, basic wall material. One way is to just grab that and drag it and drop it on the wall panel. Okay, but they already have that basic wall material on them. So if we want to make it a little bit different, we could maybe use a brick. So one wall panel at a time, we can go around dragging the material that we want onto it. So for instance, this may be a brick wall down at this end here. And then we may want to have, I don't know, concrete grime. That's a bit weird, but I suppose if we're going to be trapped in a room, then that's maybe what we want on these wall panels. So I'm just going to apply materials to the rest of the walls here, fairly painstakingly. When you're doing BSP, there is actually a way of selecting adjacent walls, but we're not doing BSP editing. So look how much better that's looking already. Okay, so now what I want to show you before I briefly leave you to go and customize your materials is a little bit of customization. Let's take this chair and say, I don't like that yellow there. That's horrible. I'm just going to show you how in the Material Node Editor we could actually change that yellow. So go to the chair, go to the Details tab, click to browse over to the actual material, so not here under Static Mesh, but the one below under Materials. That'll take you to here, M Chair, which doesn't look much like the chair. Now you can zoom out with a mouse wheel. We can get rid of the palette. And there is the general pattern of the chair. Now this thing here, this sphere, is actually the chair, but it's mapped onto a sphere right now. So this is probably the base plate of the chair or the back. You can map it onto a chair model, but in order to do that, as it says, you need to select a mesh-based asset first. So let's just not bother right now. It's easy enough to do, but let's keep things simple. What I want to show you is how you could change this yellow color. So it's actually quite well laid out. You've got a color seats parameter here, which leads into some lerp, which is a linear interpolation, which leads into another one, which multiplies with something to do with metal coloring and eventually changes the base color of the chair. So this is not the time to get into the full details of how material node editing works. But what I want to show you is the lever that you need to pull, and that's you need to go and find your color seats, for example, and you can change that to maybe a blue color with this picker here. Click OK, so that's then changed, and then we just need to save at the top left and then close the whole node editor, and look what's happened to my seat chair. It's actually quite a disgusting blue, I find now. I mean, maybe you like it. So I'm going to go and edit that once again just to reinforce it, and then I want you to go and play with, at least change the seat color. You're welcome to play with other properties of the metal, etc. as well. So let's take another look at that. M-Chair material, which is in Content, Starter Content, Props, Materials. We go into it. We have a look around. You zoom with a mouse wheel. You drag with the right mouse button. This thing here is a complicated map, which is actually a mask, which is telling the system what is metal and what is reflective and what's not, etc. But we want to look around for the color of the metal and the color of the seats. Let's just focus on those two. Customize them to your needs. So I'm going to go for, I don't know what color seat I want. Bright red, Ferrari red seat. Okay. Weight, make sure it goes red. Don't really like that. It's not quite Ferrari red enough for me. That's a bit better. It's not quite coming out right. Anyway, it's close enough. And then the color of the metal. Well, maybe I'm going to make the metal a little more goldy. That's going to be a bit bling, isn't it? So then I save the material there. It's now saving the asset. Close and look at the chair. And now it's got, that's actually worse, but so what, it's comic. So what I want you to do now is to go ahead and customize your materials. Apply materials as you see fit from the starter pack. Play with their properties to see the effect that it has. And then share your creations in the discussion. See how disgusting you can make that chair, for example. How foul a combination of colors can you create? Or how cohesive and exciting a combination of colors you can create. Either way, either astound us with your artistic abilities or sicken us with your incoherence. Okay guys, welcome back. So look, there's not really much for me to do here. I've already created a fairly sickening looking chair and I've already applied materials to everything. I'm leaving the roof open just for lighting at the moment, so I would just simply take a screenshot of this, share it in the discussions. I'm going to turn off this frames per second indicator because it's kind of irritating me, so that's at the top left there. And I will see you shortly when we will carry on building this building escape. With that chair there, you're going to want to escape this building now, so that's the incentive to leave.